Welcome to Mastering the Numbers, your go-to podcast for a deep dive into the world of business and entrepreneurship. I'm your host, Joe Mallo. Join me as I sit down with successful business owners to uncover their journeys, learnings, successes, and future plans. From market trends to personal stories of triumph, Mastering the Numbers delivers invaluable insights to fuel your own entrepreneurial spirit. So grab a seat and get ready to be inspired. All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Mastering the Numbers. I am Joe Mallo with the Lead Edge Consulting Group. We are powered by Focal Point Business and Executive Coaching. My guest today is Ariana Del Re. She is the owner and founder of Write My Life Book. Thanks for being a part of the interview series.
Thank you for having me today. I'm excited.
Absolutely. Perfect. Well, we're excited to hear the story of your company. Can you tell us a little bit about Write My Life Book?
Sure. So Write My Life Book is a digital platform, and it's just like it sounds. It helps people to be able to tell their life story. So when you consider the thought of trying to tell your life story, it's one of those um, things that, most people wouldn't know where to start if they were trying to do that. In order to help people tell their life story, the Write My Life Book platform is a process that's very user-friendly, very easy, and helps people really go into those memories of various times in their life to gather the information so that it can be written into their life story, and then published in a book for them that has a narrative about their story and photographs. The unique thing about the platform, Joe, is that instead of having to write the story themselves, which could be really, difficult for some people, is that they are going through and answering a series of questions really in just one or two words. And then all of that information is taken out, and that's my job. Then I step in and I take over and I put that into a story that is about their life. So
That's great. And I think, in a previous conversation we had, I believe that you also bring multiple generations together. So you're bringing high school kids in to also help with that interview process. Is that correct?
I do. So the platform really came out of it kind of came about organically. So my background is in education, and I had been working as a classroom teacher for a number of years. During that time, I thought it was really important to find a way to bring my students to the local assisted living community that was in our neighborhood. So I wanted to find a meaningful way for my students and the older adults that lived there to come together. So I brought my students there, and what we did was we had the kids write the life stories for the seniors. Um, it ended up being a really beautiful engagement between the two groups, beneficial really to both. My students benefited from sitting down with an older adult, learning about people that, didn't necessarily look like them, but finding out through the conversations that there were some shared life experiences, and really ended up, bonding. And after some time looking at the older adults really more as friends than anything. And the older adults really appreciated, having this captive audience there, to share all their life experiences with, and all the wisdom and, interesting stories that they had, gathered over living for so many years. So that was really the inspiration behind the company. So what ended up happening really is that once I saw how well this worked between these two groups, I just knew that I had to bring it to other communities.
Yeah.
So the digital platform really developed out of a need to help schools to have, you know, um, to have a way to bring kids in, and the kids are not necessarily responsible for the writing, but the kids are coming in as volunteers, really technology volunteers, and the
Yeah.
seniors are, I'm sorry, technology really mentors is the role that they're in, and the seniors are mentors in life. So it's really a
Yeah.
mutual mentorship program.
I think it's just such an amazing way to bring together two different generations. So completely opposite generations. So I think it's a great thing that you're doing there. So what inspired you to, I guess, first to start your own business, and then maybe secondarily, what inspired you to go in this direction?
Sure. So I started this business really just out of a recognition of how beneficial this was for communities. Seeing we have such a need, especially with the younger generation, for connection. Um,
Yeah,
and really with the older generation as well, when you look at, how our seniors are engaged, and not just engaged, but engaged in a meaningful way, where it's connecting to experiences that they had before they may have been in, assisted living, and how do you go back to those life experiences? So I really think that this is something that is needed in so many communities, and something really that I think a lot of people support and get behind, as long as there's the mechanism or tool to bring it to those communities. So that
yeah,
really is where my company, comes into play. Is we come in, we create the partnerships, we help to lay out the program and how it's going to work. And then once those partnerships are created, really the idea is that that partnership continues to flourish over, a number of years. And they take all sorts of creative directions. So once you bridge those two communities, there's all sorts of, interesting ways that those groups can engage with each other.
yeah. I think that's fantastic. Now, do you think that one of the outcomes for I know that there's some kids out there that maybe have a harder time in social situations.
Mhm.
Have you found that this is a way to help those type of kids learn different social skills, talking to people that that aren't just their friends?
I do. I do. I actually, so with my background being in education, that is really, where my primary focus was initially. And one of the things that, people may or may not realize is that the schools have um, a lot of social emotional learning standards that they're responsible for teaching to students. And that, teachers who have experience in the classroom, you know and understand that you're not going to get to any of the academic standards if you're not touching on those social emotional learning standards. So this is really giving kids an opportunity to obtain a lot of those skills. When you think about communication, working with people who look different than you, and going out into the community and contributing to the community, and what does that mean, and what is their role within the community. So this program really is something that schools need, and they embrace, because they understand that their academic outcomes are going to improve and get better as they are building the confidence of their students and the skill sets in those areas.
Yeah, I just see this helping in so many ways with so many different things. So thank you for sharing all that. So let's go to the business side of it for a second.
Sure.
What have been some of the biggest challenges or even struggles that you've had as you've been growing Write My Life book?
Well, one of the things that I can tell you is that with business, it's not the same as, my background in teaching, which even though there was some variety to, the day and the students that you were working with, there was, a lot more of it was sort of laid out. And with business, it's really not like that. So you are always going to come, up against challenges. For me, one of the early challenges that I faced was working with a developer who was coding the website, and I had a developer who was not able to, work within the scope of the project, and ended up having to abandon the project. And then I had to pick up, midway with a different web developer. It ended up working out great, and I ended up with a great team. But I will say that that could have been a really discouraging point, and could have been a point where some newer entrepreneurs could have been detoured from continuing.
Yeah, when things like that happen, you just have to put your head down and move forward. If you really believe in the project and you want it to happen, you can't stop. So
I think you
so
hit the nail on the head there too. I think it's the, you know, this is something that I look at myself in the role of a business owner, but I also see myself as an advocate for these groups and see that this is really important, work and something needed by a lot of communities. So it's something
yeah,
that, yes, I have had to figure out what those challenges are and then figure out ways around those challenges for sure.
yeah. I think it was I forget who I was listening to the other day, but they basically said without failures you can't get to the next level. I believe it was an athlete. I've
So
been I've
true.
been watching I've been watching a lot of the NBA playoffs the last couple of weeks, so I believe it was a successful athlete. But so on the business side again, is there anything that you would have done differently in establishing the business or growing the business now that you can look back?
Um, you know, I'm not sure about that. One of the things I think that really is important to acknowledge if you're going to be a new entrepreneur is that you have to be willing to grow and you have to be willing to get out of your comfort zone. So I can look back to maybe a particular meeting and say, oh, maybe that meeting didn't, go quite the way I anticipated or, something like that. Um, but I think as long as you're willing to grow and change, as long as you're willing to be um, uncomfortable for the sake of growing and reflective, then no, I can't say that I'm looking back and seeing anything that's really standing out, in
Oh,
terms of
good.
like how I would have, the other thing I would say is that, as an entrepreneur, you're starting your own business. It's really, you are always going to have the areas where you, have the skill sets and then those areas that you don't. So it's really important to recognize, what skill sets you have and when you need to, partner up with someone else who has the skill sets that you don't have so that you're establishing the business, in a way that is going to make sense as it grows.
Yeah, that's something I would 100% agree on. You do what you specialize in, and sometimes you have to hand off other things at some point to grow. So I agree. So what are some of the common misconceptions of running a business that you tend to hear?
Hmm. Common misconceptions of running a business. Well, I think that probably a misconception might be, especially early on, how you're measuring, growth and how
Yeah,
soon I think businesses grow from the beginning. So I'll kind of say it like this. I started down this journey probably 2.5 years ago, not with my students, that was 10 years ago, but with actually the business Write My Life book. So and it took really a good amount of time to actually build and establish the platform and to do it in a way that was going to be, work well and be very user friendly and all the things that I set out to do. And so I think maybe a misconception is that you start business and on day one, you're ready to go. And so I almost liken it to the idea of growing a plant. And so I look at those couple years really as establishing the roots and the system. And so from the outside perspective, I had a lot of people ask me, how's it going? How's it going? And I think, their thought is, oh, it's going great. We've done this many, we're in this many communities. And the truth to it is that we really weren't at that stage of business yet. So we were really establishing a sound root system. And then it seems from an outside perspective that all of a sudden it just kind of caught on and, has gotten, really a lot of interest. And it really isn't a suddenly, it's something that's been built all along. So
yeah, yeah. That's a good point. That's a good point. So next question, and this is something I am always interested to hear from people. But how do you maintain a work-life balance if that's something that you believe is even there, or whether it's a challenge or not?
yeah, I think, for me, work-life balance, I think probably the most challenging part of that is working from, that I do work from my home. Although, oftentimes I'm out in the community. Um, Personally for me, I think it's more of a life philosophy that extends over into my business, and into my work life. But I tend to, although I plan for the future and, you know, come up with things that, goals and those sorts of things, I tend to live in the moment and
Yeah.
be in the moment of what's going on. So when I'm involved through my work day, I'm involved with it 100%. I'm not multitasking and doing,
Right.
part home things and part work things. I stay really focused. But then on the other side of it, when the family comes in and it's that time, then that's where my focus is, and that's what I give 100% of my attention to. Um,
Yeah.
so, I guess being present would be the best way that I could describe, you know, the way that I approach the work-life balance.
I think that's a great way to approach it. Wherever, whether you're with family, focus on family. If you're at work, focus on work. Um, so I love asking that question. I like to hear how other people deal with work-life balance, since that's been one of the toughest things that I've dealt with in my career is trying to
Sure.
find it. So thanks for sharing. I mean, I guess to elaborate on that, do you have a support team that keeps you on track?
Oh, goodness. No. And I would
No?
say I do have, so I have community partners that I work with. And we do have deadlines, and we do have, you know, like those sorts of things. In terms of keeping myself on track, I mean, at the beginning of a business, I think that oftentimes the entrepreneur is the team. And so I just have gotten where I've had to keep myself, you know, going on to the next thing. And yeah, that's just been more of a personal thing, but no, not necessarily a support team.
Okay. Well, then how do you stay motivated and focused?
Yeah. Um, it's one of those things I think that, I mean, to me, focus kind of develops naturally out of life's activities. So, the more I go out into the community and talk about what I'm doing, the more I have people who want to know more. The more that I have meetings, and then the more that from those meetings we have, community partnerships. Um, that sort of drives where my focus is at. That being said, I still have to look at the business, overall, and determine, where my time is going to be best spent. But I am finding that my time is best spent, really bringing the bringing the platform to the people who it was meant to serve, or people who are expressing an interest, who would like the platform because they feel that it could help with what they do. So let me give you a quick example about that. Lately, I've been approached by a number of home care organizations and companies, and hospice companies for palliative care. Um,
Yes.
and what they're interested in is expanding their companion care services. So in that scenario, it's not necessarily a student working on the platform with an older person, but it's a caregiver. It has many of the same benefits. So they're able to sit together, be that audience that is listening. Many of the same benefits for the seniors are coming out of it. The fact that they're feeling that their life experience is being validated. They're feeling more connected to their caregivers. In the situation with palliative or hospice care, oftentimes you have families that are surrounding a family member who's going through something. And how do you spend that time together? It's, brimmed with, worry and things to do. Um, but this can provide the family with, a focus that they're working on together, and that they're having these conversations that they may not have had an opportunity to have. and talking about all these different aspects of their loved one's life. And then the family has, a book to reflect that experience together. So, so that seems to drive a lot of what I do is where the interest is at, and how can this company continue to serve people in a way that's beneficial?
Yeah. I've always felt that if you really love what you're doing and the project it really interests you, it's a little bit easier to stay motivated and focused.
I agree.
So, um, so let me ask you this: what does your business look like in the next? Where do you see it in the next 12 to 36 months?
I think continuing to do the things that we're doing, um, and really building a solid model. Um, what I really am setting out to do is build, a model for this type of, partnership within communities, um, in Northeast Ohio, and really have a strong example of what that looks like within the different, contexts. So looking at with assisted living, and looking at with, other companies that are interested in using this, and then having, that be a model to other communities, because, every community has older people and children. And
Right.
so, whether it be school systems, whether it be uniting Boy Scout, troops and Girl Scout troops, um, there's so many different ways that this company can bring people together. So I think, establishing that sound model, and then having, other parts of the country come in and look at it and say, wow, that's really valuable. How can we do that, here?
Yeah.
Really, I think is where my focus is right now. Um, and, people are also able to use this with their own, loved one at home. So really, having, I have families who have kids and their grandparents live across the country. And
Yeah.
so they have, worked on the Write My Life book platform, and now they meet weekly, just like we're talking on a Zoom call. Um, and they're going through the questions together. And so they're spending more time together. They're talking about things they never would have had an opportunity to talk about. And the family will end up with, a book that documents, that whole journey together.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm really excited to see where the business goes. You'll have to keep me informed over the next 12 to 36 months.
For sure.
What do you see any, or I guess what type of challenges do you see in your way over the next 12 to 36 months that were different than the ones you ran into at the very beginning?
Sure. So I think with all businesses, one thing that I'm finding is that there is a lot of interest in this idea. And so I think that it's very, many people, what they want to do is just continue to grow, 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 grow.
Yeah.
And, the challenge I think that comes with that way of thinking is that you start spreading yourself thin, you start losing, your mission, and now you're not really doing what you set out to do. So, I look at it as, let's continue to get into more communities in a way that we are still able, to support that. And then the company grows naturally.
Yeah.
And I'm, bringing, we'll be bringing on, eventually more employees, but in a way that, that it's able to support really still what you're trying to do. So that's what I see in the next 3 years really being the biggest challenge.
Yeah.
I'll say that with the caveat of you never know what challenges are coming your way.
Right. True.
So you kind of need to be prepared for, whatever it is. But
Yeah.
at this stage of where we're at, that's what I anticipate.
Yeah. Yeah. We may not know what the challenges are, but we know that there always will be
Sure.
challenges in growing a business. So, what's the best advice anybody's ever given you, in relation to your business?
Oh, goodness. I think it's that, there is always going to be, uncertainty and challenges. Anybody who wants to become an entrepreneur and thinks that it's going to be, they're going to go from, A to Z easily, or that every day is going to be, a great day business wise, I think that that's a naive way to approach this. Um, so I think understanding that there's going to be those days where, things are just going really great and you're really excited about, the direction you're going, um, are going to come. And then you're going to have days where you're really questioning, is this possible? Is this something that, is it really taking on, more than what can happen? And so that's always going to creep, that doubt is always going to be part of it. So, and it's really, I think, just having a tempered view of all of that and understanding that, the highs are going to come, the lows are going to come, and you can't really ride either one of them too
Right.
closely. Right.
Right.
But again, having that like really steady mission is always brings me back to, what is the purpose of why am I doing this? And who can this really serve by the work that I'm putting in?
Right. That's great advice to share. So, final question is
Sure.
what advice would you give to somebody that's thinking about starting a business? They're right on the edge and they just haven't made the final decision to go forward and just do it.
I think what I would tell them is to be ready for a lot that they're not ready for.
Right.
And it's kind of a funny thing to say, but truly what I guess what I'm saying is um you have to be minded where you're willing to look at challenges and you're willing to, find the opportunity. You have to look at, what you said before, like failures, and you have to understand that, where are the clues in those failures of, pointing you in the right direction for where you need to go. You have to be, understand, like you said, who's your team that motivates you. And I said, well, it's the people who get excited about it, when I'm working on it with them. But really it, it's myself many days. And, if all of those things don't sound particularly interesting to somebody, then, they may not, want to, take that leap into being an entrepreneur. Um, I would say that it's, equal parts rewarding and challenging.
Right.
Um,
That is 100% for sure. So, well, listen, Ariana, I really appreciate you taking time out of your day to spend it with myself and the audience on mastering the numbers. If somebody wants to get in touch with you about Write My Life book, what's the best way to do it?
Best way to do it is to go to the Write My Life book website, and it's www.writemylifebook.com. And there's a contact form on there, and the contact form will put them in touch with me. So, whether they're an organization, home health company, or if it's an individual who wants to tell the life story of, their grandmother or grandfather, reach out to me, and I will, help to answer whatever I can answer for them to get them started on
Great.
that journey. So, yes.
Perfect. Perfect. Listen, once again, I really appreciate you being on the podcast with me. I was really excited to hear more about your business, and there certainly is an important part this plays between those two different generations. To everybody else out there that's listening, I appreciate you taking time as well, and we'll catch you on the next episode of Mastering the Numbers. Take care, everybody.
You've just experienced another insightful episode of Mastering the Numbers. We hope you enjoyed the journey and gained valuable insights to fuel your financial success. Don't forget to subscribe to Mastering the Numbers on your favorite podcast platform to never miss an episode. And be sure to leave us a review to let us know how we're doing. Until next time, keep pushing forward and let your entrepreneurial spirit soar. Thank you for listening.